Now, let's deal with Alabama, where they somehow cannot let go of the Confederacy as well. All of the ballots in the December 12th Alabama Senate election have been counted, and there will be no recount. Turn off your phone, Barbara Unwine. Really?
There it is.
But you don't have to mess with her. But Republican Roy Moore has yet to concede to Doug Jones, sore loser. Now, Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill is investigating whether voter fraud may have led to Jones' victory. Merrill is, he's basing his investigation on the comments of one Jones supporter to a reporter on election night.
We came here all the way from different parts of the country as part of our fellowship, and all of us pitched in to vote and canvass together, and we got our boy elected.
Now, Secretary Merrill says he's received hundreds of complaints about that interview.
Well, it's very disconcerting when someone who is not from Alabama expresses the fact that they had participated in our election. And so now it's incumbent on us to try to identify this young man to see what kind of role he played.
Really? We called Merrill to come on the show. He says he doesn't want to talk at this time. I wonder why. Joining us, A. Scott Bolden, legal analyst and chairman of the National Bar Association, PAC, Monique Presley, legal analyst and principal at the Presley Law Firm, Todd A. Cox, director of policy for the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, and you heard her phone earlier, Barbara Unwine, president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition.
Go out the right way.
Yes, precisely. Barbara hasn't had a habit, y'all, on this show of making noises while I'm talking. I'll be sitting here reading, Barbara like, that's a shame. It's a doggone shame. And I've had to say, like, can you, like, chill, Barbara? Barbara thinks she in church with the call and response.
That's right. That's right.
Todd, I want to start with you. Again, one person, really?
Well, you know, it's amazing that given Alabama's history of voter suppression and discrimination in voting that this would be a priority. We were there on election day during the special election. We saw numerous examples of voter problems that confronted African-American voters in their opportunity to participate in the electoral process. Voters standing in long lines only to be told they're on inactive lists and not given an opportunity to vote a regular ballot. Voters who, when they got there, were given false or incorrect information regarding photo ID policy of Alabama. Voters who, unfortunately, in certain areas, stood in long lines because the facilities lacked the proper or the right number of voter machines or check-in locations. So, you know, we urge the Secretary of State to focus on those problems as well as the numerous other examples of in ways Alabama is in a serial way preventing African Americans from participating in the electoral process.
Barbara.
Yes, and in addition, I mean, think about this. This is one person who makes a statement that's clearly out of line, you know, probably just in his enthusiasm misstated what he really meant to say. But, I mean, because, listen, if you're going to engage in voter fraud... Hold on 1 second.
Is Barbara's mic going in and out, folks?
Uh-oh.
Okay, Barbara, hold tight. They're going to fix your mic. Scott, pick up, please.
Well, I think
so step in and fix Barbara's mic.
I think the jubilation is correct. But here's the deal. This is a waste of taxpayers' dollars, not because it's not per se worth investigating. The reality is that as an attorney general, I'm a former prosecutor, this statement alone shouldn't be enough to trigger an investigation. You need corroboration, as Monique will tell you. So a document or more than one person saying this before you even announce you're going to do an investigation or you're even going to look at it. Because now it becomes a farce of an investigation, and it costs taxpayer dollars money just to look at it. This is more politics than it really is legal justification.
Monique?
Right, but farces are what we do now because it starts right behind us and down the street at the White House, and we see investigation after investigation being called for things that we know are ridiculous. Like from the start, we know that it's false, and so that has taken hold, and people think that they can just send the entire country state by state on a wild goose chase, and that's what they unfortunately are trying to do in Alabama.
Barbara, we got your mic fixed. Go ahead.
Yes, and you know, furthermore, just think about it. If you're going to engage in voter fraud, do you go on national television and tell the world that that's what you've done? I mean, let's get real. The other thing is, in addition to what Todd talked about, people went into Montgomery to vote and found out that the disability ramps had been removed. Think about that. 3 million people in our country could not vote in 2016 because of the lack of disability access. What we also saw was ex-felons who had had their rights restored attempting to vote and being denied that right because they would not accept their, quote, mugshot pictures, which had been agreed to be accepted as legitimate photo ID. This whole photo ID movement needs to be stopped. We need to reverse it. There's a need in this country to absolutely get rid of felon disenfranchisement that blocks out 6 million potential voters, 1.7 in Florida right now, where they are running a petition drive. Listen, if you're in Florida, you know, Roland, people need to be part of that. If you haven't signed the petition, you reach out and do that.
That ballot initiative that's in Florida,
yes.
They're getting those signatures, and so we have them on the show.
Yes.
We really want to see that. Todd, the reason I wanted to start the show today with a legal panel, since our last show moving forward, the question is, what do black folks need to be prepared for? Because we saw what happened in Alabama.
Yes.
They know folks are mobilized and ready. There's going to be an all-out assault on black people by Republicans when it comes to the ballot box in 2018.
Well, African Americans, black voters need to be, number one, prepared for the fact that allegations of vote fraud, completely unsubstantiated allegations of vote fraud, might be used to fuel a backlash against their turnout and their significant participation in the electoral process. You know, we've already seen it with this administration, the so-called Pence-Kobach voter intimidation, we call it voter suppression commission. You know, that commission was designed to trump up, excuse the pun, trump up allegations of vote fraud just so that states and the federal government will take action to suppress the vote. So we need to be awake. We need to be aware of the fact that these allegations of vote fraud that really you're more likely to get struck by lightning than to see in-person vote fraud are just an attempt to undermine our opportunity.
Scott, what will the NBA be doing to combat again? There's going to be an assault on black voters.
Yeah, well, certainly we've got lawyers, black lawyers and NBA members, even in this past election, are located in every state, in many communities, who will be focused, be ready to litigate, be ready to advocate, whether it's administratively or in the federal courts or the state courts, not just on the day of, but leading up. So we got to be focused and disciplined, committed. We have to have the numbers, and we got to fight. You know, Virginia and Alabama didn't happen by happenstance.
That's right.
It happened because money and voters and organizations were laser-like focused on these jurisdictions. The challenge for Democrats and people of color is that can they be like that in every state for every race in 2018? That's going to be our biggest challenge.
Right, and people need to know their rights ahead of time. You know,
Absolutely.
we are on the
Great
ground
point.
on the day of. Lawyers Committee's there, National Bar is there. All of these groups are out there, but the websites for each of those organizations have really simple methods that you can say. For instance, if you're in line at the time voting polls close, stay in line because you have a right to vote. Here's what your ID is, state by state. They need to know those things ahead of time, and the public can help us in ensuring that everyone knows that, because all you have to do is see what happened in Alabama and know when we turn out to vote, we vote and we win.
Barbara.
And the National Commission for Voter Justice is going to be holding hearings all over the country. Beginning in 2018, the National Bar Association is a big part of this effort. So is Rainbow Push, all kinds of organizations. And we're going to be going into 16 different locations around the country, having hearings about voter suppression, how people can fight to have the best civic engagement, how to win, how to get electoral reform like automatic voter registration, all of the things that
Same-day
we
registration,
need.
too.
Hey, EDR, we got to have it. And
Get rid of photo IDs.
absolutely. So, you know, this is a movement, and we're going to be igniting this movement. Also, we're working on training 10,000 African American, Latino, Native American millennials to activate themselves as voting rights champions all over this country in the 21 most worst voter suppression states. So we're serious about this. This is not something where people should be sitting back saying, well, nobody's doing anything. No, look for us. We're coming.
Let me be real clear, folks. Our votes are going to matter. And again, when we turn out with our numbers, we could actually change elections. We saw it in Alabama, and still a lot of us still didn't vote in Alabama, even with those massive numbers.